think this is probably going to be my last video, but for this one, I'm going to walk you guys through the version of the exam that we took in class on Monday. I can't make a video going through the other test because that's the one that people took if they came in and made it up, and I still have some people that might come in and make it up, so I don't want to reveal the answers for that one. But I am going to go over the answers to this one because this is probably going to be the best thing that you have to prepare for the actual test. So I'm going to kind of walk you through like what this one is about and what the like main points are to focus on, what the subjects are of the questions that you may have missed, and then hopefully that will make more sense. So a couple of things that I want to point out, and I'll make little comments here as I go. Is that the comment bubble? Yes. Okay. So I want to add a comment. Here, make sure that you are paying attention to the way that I don't like that, cancel, the way that the assignment is written, because they're often going to say, so-and-so's teacher told them to write about this or to make this report or to make this letter. And in this one, in a few minutes, it's going to pay attention to the assignment. In this one, the word experience is going to help determine one of the answers later. Okay, so Tim decides to write about his experience in Germany and makes this chart. Use it to answer questions 1 and 2. So the teacher wants him to write about an experience that changed the way that he viewed a subject or an idea. And so you see that he has his broken down. So this is a brainstorm. He has it broken down into before, during, and after his trip to Germany. And he tells you that he has one Canadian parent. So this is just him coming up with as many ideas as possible. Never celebrated 4th of July, not patriotic, all the stuff that happened while he was in Germany. And then the results of that being the way that he viewed America afterwards. And so since the assignment is the experience that changed the way that they view a subject or idea, well, if it's the way they view the subject of patriotism, then so far it looks like Tim is meeting the requirements. So based on what Tim has recorded here, what is likely to be the focus of his essay? The changing German viewpoint, his changed ideas about holidays in Germany, his own changed viewpoint of being an American, or how his diet changed after his visit to Germany. Before we start answering this, any of these ones that say like what is probably going to be the focus or what is likely to be the best detail or what sentence should be added next or what detail is missing here, scroll ahead, click ahead a couple things, whatever it lets you do. Mark this as one of the questions you want to come back to, because a lot of times if you then just scroll to the draft, it'll have the answer in there. You will see that his focus is on his feelings towards America. And so question 1, his own changed viewpoint of being American. Even if you didn't really pay attention to the other ones, you didn't actually need to go in and analyze this chart. If you had just scrolled down through here, you would see before last summer, I had no deep feelings towards America. So that lets you know something happened over the summer that's going to change his viewpoint. You got the answer to number 1, so that is C. Which of the following items is not in the chart but would be useful in Tim's essay as background? This one I think is a little tricky, and it comes down to the word background. So if you have the when and why of his visit to Germany, that's giving you background of especially the why he went to Germany in the first place, because that is telling you information that happened before, so in the background of his trip. Details about Canadian holidays. There's only one brief mention of a parent being Canadian. That one doesn't matter. The population statistics of Germany compared to America. I mean, maybe if he had gone into detail about, what percentage of the population is patriotic or something. The one that I thought was the like kind of right, but not really, is details about holidays celebrated in Germany. Because I thought, well, he could maybe add in some comparison between the holidays in Germany and the holidays in America, but this isn't background information. This is current information. So if you have to choose, in the case of this one, when I was taking it, wanted to choose between F and J, pay attention to the way the question is worded. That is going to be one of the biggest things here. So always pay attention to how the question is worded. It's an English test. And so when it comes to English, every single word is going to matter. So pay attention to that. The answer here is F. So now we get to his actual rough draft. I am an American. That sentence has been written and spoken proudly many times over the past 200 years. Rarely has it been used to illustrate its broad sense of citizenship. Instead, it has been used to relate a person to the many symbols of America: democracy, diversity, hard work, power, and freedom. In most contexts, I am an American is used to relate a person to some of these symbols of which he or she is proud. I am not a very patriotic person. I don't shiver when I see the American flag or when I hear the national anthem. One of my parents is Canadian. They have never served in the armed forces or anything like that, so they have raised me as just an average person with no obviously deep feelings for America. The 4th of July, perhaps America's proudest day, hasn't meant much to me either. My parents always took me to fireworks displays, but we never did much else that made the 4th special to me. Before last summer, I had no deep feelings towards America. So you see here that he's given a whole lot of background information about what it was like before he went. And so that's carrying over all of this stuff from the before Germany column. So, which of the following best describes the central idea of the first part of Tim's draft? This I want to make note of because remember, they're probably going to break any essays that they give you. They're probably going to break it down into multiple chunks. So don't assume that you're getting the whole essay. As always, pay attention to the way that it's labeled because it's going to say up here, this is the first part of Tim's rough draft. So you have Tim doesn't understand what it means to be an American because his freedom has never been threatened. That might be the case, but we don't see anything about that. We don't see him commenting on other people's freedom being threatened. We don't see him uh, commenting on like war, aside from saying his parents didn't serve in the military. Tim takes for granted all of the benefits America offers its citizens. Again, probably. I mean, he seems to, if he's not particularly patriotic. It seems like, yeah, he probably does take it for granted. Because one of Tim's parents is Canadian, he was raised to appreciate more than one culture. We just have the one random comment about the parent being Canadian, so that's certainly not enough to qualify as the central idea. Instead, your answer is D. Tim never really thought about what it meant to be an American until recently. And that's fairly directly stated here in this last sentence. Before last summer, I had no deep feelings towards America. So we spent this whole time talking about how he was just kind of bleh when it came to any thoughts about patriotism. It's early. When he thought about it, he didn't really have any feelings. So that's going to be D. Now here, some of these, especially A and B, if you scroll to the next section of the draft, you'll see that those are kind of closer to the main point of the entire essay. But they're asking about the first part. And since we haven't read the paragraphs that are on the next page, we don't know anything about A or B. So your answer here is D. Tim develops paragraph 2 of his rough draft by paragraph 2. That's this one, because every time you see an indentation, it starts a new paragraph. And he talks about what his parents are like, the way that they celebrated when he was growing up, how they went to fireworks, and then transitions into what he's going to do next summer. So he's not particularly defining any important terms. He's not providing a chronological account of his trip to Germany. We haven't even gotten there yet. He's not contrasting his parents' view of being American with his own. In fact, because contrasting means showing differences, he's saying he did agree with his parents. They also were not particularly patriotic. So your answer here is G, because he gives personal examples of how he is not patriotic. Talks about 4th of July, talks about fireworks, talks about not caring particularly about the American flag or the national anthem. So he's giving those personal examples. Actually, before I move on to that one, let me pause here and go back as far as what you might need to study. So if you had gotten this one wrong, this issue is dealing with focus. So the subject of this particular question is focus or unity within an essay and or paragraphs. So what that means, what that translates to is sticking to one point throughout, not going off focus, not losing focus. This one, number 2, this is asking when it's saying, but what would be useful in Tim's essay as background? This one is asking about supporting details. Subject, what the best supporting details would be. Can I underline or anything? It's not. So for this one, you would want to look up focus. For this one, you want to look up supporting details. For this one, you want to look at main ideas, which means the thing, the idea that covers the whole thing. And his whole thing is about not knowing what it really meant to be an American. Paragraph 2 with development, this is another one about supporting details. Now we have switched to some grammar. So how can Tim best combine sentences 7 and 8 without changing their meaning? This type of question about combining sentences, this comes up a lot. This is going to be on your sentence variety stuff. Sentence variety, I think it's also on the one that's called sentence structure. So this is where you have your compound, complex sentences, where you have your conjunctions. So that's also going to be on parts of speech. And actually, it's also going to include punctuation. I will go ahead and say grammar is what got almost everyone, what got almost everyone. Like for the questions that people missed, I would say probably 80% of them were grammar questions. So going back here, you have, sentence 7 and 8. One of my parents is Canadian. They've never served in the armed forces. They've raised me average person. My parents, one of them is Canadian, have never served in the armed forces or anything like that. So they have raised me as just an average person with no obviously deep feelings for America. When you have this interrupting phrase, it shouldn't be a complete sentence. So this one you take out because it shouldn't be a complete sentence. My parents have never served in the armed forces or anything like that, so they have raised me as just an average person with no obviously deep feelings for America. You don't have any grammatical issues in that one. The comma's where it should be. Everything is as it should be. They did cut out the Canadian part. And so you want to make sure that you're not changing the meaning, but we'll come back and look at that one after we've looked at the others. Because one of my parents is Canadian, they have never served in the armed forces or anything like that. So they have raised me as just an average person with no obviously deep feelings for America. What we see here, and this is, you got to pay attention to tiny details. We see here that the person writing this, what was his name? Tim, that when Tim was writing this, he uses he or she instead of saying they. He's going to say if someone did this, then he or she should be proud of their behavior. So here, where you have then uh, my parents have never, or no, sorry, because one of my parents is Canadian, they have never served. So what he's saying here is that both of the parents have never served. If only one of the parents is Canadian, then this one is going to rule that out. That's going to change the meaning because that is not the reason that neither parent served in the military. You're not banned from the military just because you are you share a child with someone who is not American. Your last one here, you have my parents have never served in the armed forces or anything like that. So they have raised me as just an average person with no obviously deep feelings for America. At this point, you can see B and D are saying the same thing. This one tacks on, and one of them is Canadian. So if I'm trying to combine sentence 7 and 8, I want to look at the meaning of them. If the fact that that parent is Canadian has nothing to do with why they raised the kid that way, you're better off to just cut it. So the best combination for this one is going to be B. Now we are getting on to the next part of Tim's rough draft. So you are imagining that this is coming right after the paragraph that ends with before last summer I had no deep feelings towards America. Then last summer my attitude toward America changed. As far as writing your own essay goes, notice how those two ideas connected for transition. For 8 weeks of the summer, I lived in Germany. Unless you've been out of the United States, it's difficult to imagine a democratic, industrialized nation so different from America. For example, after the 4th grade, students are separated into 3 different kinds of schools according to their scores on a test: an apprenticeship school in a trade or industry, a school that trains students for a clerical career, or a university or higher level position in business or government. In addition, all males 18 or over must serve 15 months with the armed forces. These differences helped me gain a new appreciation for American life, but it was the 4th of July in Germany that really made me realize how intensely American I am. The morning newspaper had a small article in the back reporting the 213th birthday of the United States. To my host family and other Germans, the day was nothing special. But the group of American students I was with took the day off from school and toured a small castle. Our tour ended on top of one of those towers, and as we looked down to the lawn, we saw that an American flag had been set up. I'm not going to read the rest of it because that's going to take forever, and I know you don't want to watch this video for 5 hours. So I will pause there, or if you want to pause and read the rest of it to refresh your memory. This is also still posted on Classroom, so you can look at it there. Okay, this, we have a grammar question. In fact, I think all of these are grammar. Yes. In sentence 16, how is a new appreciation correctly written? Well, first off, I want to point out that Debbie noticed they made a typo. It should be sentence 17. So you see that the state also makes mistakes. My chair is squeaky, sorry. So if we scroll up here to sentence 17, we see these differences helped me gain a new appreciation for American life, but it was the 4th of July in Germany that really made me realize how intensely American I am. So sentence 6 then, or excuse me, question 6, how is a new appreciation correctly written? So you have new to appreciate, a new appreciative, newly appreciated, or as it is. Let's go back and plug them all in. So we have, let me just zoom out so that I can do that more easily. Sentence 17. There we go. These differences helped me gain new to appreciate for American life. That doesn't work. These differences helped me gain a new appreciative for American life. That doesn't work. These differences helped me gain newly appreciated for American life. So it helps you gain a thing. If you gain something, you gain weight, you gain money, you gain resources. That means it's going to be a noun. It's going to be a thing that you gain. So it is actually, for this one, correct as it is. So my tip here is going to be go back and test each one out. I've been writing the subjects of the other one. Combine sentences without changing their meaning. Okay. I think that's pretty good. In sentence 14, imagine is correctly written. So go back up here. Unless you've been out of the United States, it is difficult to imagine a democratic industrialized nation. I think actually when I read this that I read it the correct way. So again, plug it in. It is difficult have imagine. It is difficult to imagine. It is difficult imagination, or as it is. Make sure that you're reading carefully because in my brain, I filled in the word to because it is difficult to imagine. That doesn't work. It should be, it is difficult to imagine. So the answer here is B. Nope. Just B. How is sentence 25 correctly written? Here you have two different subjects actually going on. So you have subject. This is sentence variety again, but it is also verb tense. Verb tense happens a lot on this particular version of the test. In fact, I'm sitting here looking at my sheet for what I'm going to go over, and there's like 10 that have to do with verb tense as far as grammar goes. So verb tense, remember, that is tells when an action happened. So sentence 25. Our patriotism grew. We felt good about ourselves and what we had at home. Well, first off, you need to identify that this is a comma splice right here. So our patriotism grew is a complete sentence. We felt good about ourselves and what we had at home is a complete sentence, but they have nothing but a comma here, so they've made a comma splice. Let's see. Here they've done the same thing. Our patriotism had growth, complete sentence. We felt good about ourselves, complete sentence. So it's not going to be F because they made another comma splice. Our patriotism grown, we felt good about ourselves and what we had at home. Our patriotism growing, we felt good about ourselves. So both of these have introductory phrases, which actually means I probably also want to add punctuation on. With introductory phrases. But the only difference between these two is the verb tense. So this one, grown, means it happened in the past. Like they've grown 6 inches. That means over the course of the past 5 years, in the past, they did a total of 6-inch growth. This means it's currently happening. So our patriotism growing, we felt good. So if you say, I am walking to school, that means like currently you are doing the act of walking. So we have past, we have present, or as it is. Well, let's look at the sentences around it then. So our patriotism grew. We felt good about ourselves and what we had at home. It was, we continued, we reminisced. All of those are in past tense. Talked, So pay attention to all the sentences around it and make sure you are picking the same tense, because grammatically, both G and H are correct. They are both written correctly. They have the right punctuation, all of that. The difference is the verb tense. And because the rest of the paragraph is in past tense, this one should also be in past tense. So I'm going to make, oh, well, and compared to the original was our patriotism grew, which is also past tense, but they made the comma splice. So here, make sure you compare it to other sentences. "25 minutes. Let's see. I'll probably stop at question 10. Is 10 start a new one? Yeah. Okay, number 9. In sentence 28, experience a different type of life in Germany is correctly written. So again, more grammar. Here. So I've been an American, my educational opportunities, even when I could buy. Experience a different type of life in Germany. I realized that it is something special to be an American. So this sentence structure here is like a command. It's telling you, go experience a different type of life in Germany. But that's not the message that Tim is trying to say. He's trying to talk about how in the past he experienced that different life. So you want to go to, let's see, experiencing a different type of life in Germany. Let's try them in. I realize that it is something special to be an American. Zoom out a little bit. Have experienced a different type of life in Germany. Well, this one is missing a subject. If it had said, I have experienced, or after I had experienced. The experience a different type of life in Germany. Well, that one has a subject, but it's not him. It's not who it should be. And then you have as it is, but we've already decided that it is not correctly written currently, so it can't be D. So let's go back and try A. Experiencing a different type of life in Germany, I realize that it is something special to be an American. Personally, I don't think that that's the best answer. I think that it should be like having experienced a different life or after I experienced a different type of life. But if you gotta choose, if it's one of these where you gotta make a decision based on what you got, A is gonna be your best option here. I don't personally think that it is, the correct option, but it's better than the other ones. And then in sentence 28, how is to be an American correctly written? So we're going back to the same sentence. Experience a different type of life in Germany. I realize that it is something special to be an American. Well, did you realize it is something special to have been an American? No, he's currently still American. It is something special is being an American? That doesn't make sense. It is something special I was an American? Maybe, if you wouldn't have then made a run-on sentence. So this one is correct as it is. And then both of these, both 9 and 10, are dealing with verb tense. This one is probably, where's my comments? Both of these about verb tense, but also number 9 also includes modifiers, which they have their own section in the grammar review that I gave you guys, but also they're going to have some mention in punctuation. Okay, I'm almost at 30 minutes on the dot, so I'm going to pause after question 10 here and then make a second video going through the others.